That said, I want to look at something else that's just kind of garbage. Like, just genuinely garbage content, but it is content that gets a lot of views for some weird reason. So we're going to talk about Jubilee before we get into anything else now. So for those who don't know, Jubilee is a political entertainment channel that focuses on having big, quote, gimmick debates. And the gimmick debates are always like, we put 5 conservatives and 5 liberals in a room, and here's what happens. It's reality show bullshit. But their most successful line of making money lately has been the 1 person versus 20 people debates. So they'll do like 1 liberal versus 20 conservatives, and it's Sam Cedar, or 1 conservative versus 20 liberals, and it's Michael Knowles. This one is 1 LGBTQ activist versus 25 conservatives, and it should be fairly obvious that LGBTQ issues should not be political. Like, they shouldn't be. We should all be able to agree that trans rights are human rights and the rights for gay people to marry are also just a human rights thing, and they shouldn't be political. But they end up being political. So we are going to take a look at those, well, this.
They're not inherently damaging. It doesn't violate natural law. There are over 1,000 species that are proven to have queer relationships.
So at what number do we have to get to show you that
it
this
ended up
ruined their
saving
lives?
their
How
lives.
many double mastectomies do we need to
How
have?
many young people have to tell you that this care is saving their lives before you care?
I'm talking about the fact that it's even a movement to begin with. It doesn't deserve
There's a civil rights movement that is described as the LGBTQ.
It doesn't deserve a civil right.
Okay,
Hi, my name is Andrew Moritz. I'm a Harvard student. I'm the executive director at Sea Alliance, a youth-led political movement focusing on school boards in Florida. And today, I'm surrounded by 25 conservatives. My first claim is Donald Trump and Elon Musk are grooming more young Americans than the LGBTQ plus community.
Okay, interesting. Let's see what he means by grooming.
Can we agree that grooming is bad and should be punished?
Okay, so also, for those who don't know the rules of this, a conservative will get into the podium, they will speak for a bit, and then if the conservatives in the audience feel like they are not doing a good job, they'll raise red flags, and after half the group has their red flags raised, they will step in and take over instead. Okay.
Finished?
Yeah.
Okay, lit. What I would say is that Donald Trump
Paige says Jubilee gives supercharged Jerry Springer vibes. Yeah.
and Elon Musk use their positions of influence over young Americans to change the way hundreds of thousands of young Americans think and behave throughout elementary, middle, and high schools, which has been documented, studied, and proven to increase bullying and harm, and it infringes on parental consent.
I disagree.
Why?
I think
I disagree. Okay, cool. Let's see how you disagree with that.
that what they are trying to do is not grooming, but trying to...
Let's define.
He is struggling really hard with this. Do you think he might have social anxiety? Not to make fun of him for having social anxiety, because, like, I have that as well, but he's definitely struggling on this one.
Grooming. We should start by doing that.
Yeah.
I would say that grooming is someone with a position of influence over another person attempting to change their thought patterns or behavior to exploit them. Would you agree?
Right.
What I would say is
Okay,
that
then
Donald
by
Trump
that
and Elon Musk
definition,
are
that's
proven
grooming.
to have been doing that with elementary, middle, and high school children by sending targeted ads to youth demographics, accessing their rhetoric on social media, and what studies have shown, studies of tens of thousands of teachers, reported incidents, school reports, hundreds of disciplinary reports sent to studies have proven that there's increase in bullying in places where Donald Trump...
I think they have a plan.
Well, let me finish this really quickly. It's important to note that there have been thousands of...
Wait. They have a plan to improve the United States of America, so the propaganda for the kids is the plan? Let's see how you get to that one.
Cases of Donald Trump's rhetoric being linked specifically to bullying incidents that have been done by elementary schoolers, middle schoolers, and high schoolers who all said that they felt vindicated in their actions because Donald Trump, the president, told them that it was okay. And what we're also seeing is that in communities that have a 10-point increase in support for Donald Trump, there's an 8% increase in bullying. And the reason that this is unique is this has never happened in politics before. It hasn't mattered Republican or Democrat. It's specifically Donald Trump and Elon Musk working to change the minds of young Americans, and they're doing it for exploitative gain.
Right.
Okay.
Exploitive.
I think that we are tired. We're tired of of the left or the LGBT community. We're tired of them trying
what?
to influence the children as well.
No one's trying to influence the children, except
Yes, they
Donald
are.
Trump and Elon Musk.
Okay, so no. I actually disagree with the speaker on this one. No, the left is 100% trying to influence kids. No. See, this is a problem. This is a problem. This is a problem with how people view politics. This is a problem with how people view politics in general.
Outstanding. My name is
Let's see if you
Belnestraz,
agree.
and I thank you for rescuing.
Dude, if you agree, hand him the oath stone. Should we wait? Do. Okay, there we go.
For the Alliance.
Interesting. I said influencing kids is not bad. Do you not want people to influence kids to be better? Yeah, no, this is a point where I actually disagree with the speaker. The reason I do so is we have a fundamental misunderstanding of how politics functions in the United States. I was having a conversation with my mod Dorito about this in Cracker Barrel as I was coming back from the protest in Florida. And there's a point that he made, and it's from another streamer. It's from Destiny, but like, if somebody who I disagree with on a lot of things says something that I agree with, I'm still going to point out that that thing is, correct. Held in offhand, it's technically better than what I'm using, I think? No. Yeah, it is. Anyway, if somebody says something that is correct, I'm still going to acknowledge it. So, a thing that Destiny said that was brought to my attention here was politics is about power. You get into politics so that you can impose your power on other people. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. That is what it is for. The right understands this. The right understands on a fundamental level that you get into politics because you think the world should operate a certain way, and you want to make the world bend to your will to operate that way. The left, on the other hand, looks at politics as brownie points. Oh my God, look at that person. They're being such an icon. Look at that person. They are doing the right thing. Look at that person. God, they are just such an inspiration. That is the way that we on the left tend to look at politics. We look at it as a thing that many of us don't want to engage in, but are kind of forced to engage in. And we treat it as something where the people who are doing the right thing will donate to their channels, will comment that they're amazing and they've helped us through such hard times. And while that is all fair and true, while that is all fair and great, and personally, I really enjoy when people send me those comments. It makes me feel like I've done some good in their lives. But there's a fundamental misunderstanding of what politics are in that moment. They are not entertainment. They are a vehicle to propagandize. They are not something that you are doing for the brownie points. They are a thing where you think that the world should operate a certain way, and you want to contort it so that it is forced to. There's this idea that if we just put enough liberal people in politics, that everything will sort itself out. But no. Every single person who has claimed power has claimed power either because they have wanted to or it was thrusted upon them, but the end result is the same. That person now has a measure of power where they are able to comport reality to their will in one way, shape, or form. We can argue about motivations, but that is the reality of the situation. Once you have power in politics, you have power over people. The left likes to argue that all of our power comes from the bottom up, and to a degree that is true. But we live in a top-down governmental system masquerading as a bottom-up governmental system. And by not using all of the same loopholes and all of the same ways to break the rules that the right has been abusing, we cede power to the right constantly. So when we're talking about, actually, no, the right wing are the ones influencing kids, not the left. No. No, the left wants to influence kids too. We just disagree on which influence is legitimate and which one is predatory. I agree that influencing children to let them know that it's okay to be trans, let them know that it's okay to be gay, let them know that it's okay to have friends of a different race, let them know that it's okay to sleep with people of a different race. I believe that it is fine to teach those lessons to children. I think it is okay, but that is invariably influencing kids. Period. Now, we can argue that there is a more concerted effort on influencing children from the Trump administration, and we can agree on that, but that is a matter of degrees. We can't be binary thinkers on this. And a binary thinker, for those who don't know, is anybody who looks at a situation as either this is happening or it is not, as opposed to this is happening but at a different scale, or this is happening but at a different frequency. So in this situation, it's not the Trump administration is doing this and the left is not. It is the Trump administration is doing this and it is being more effective and it is trying to do it more and having a more concerted effort in doing so. Recognize when the left as a unit is trying to use its power collectively to influence things, and recognize when the right is doing it as well and succeeding at it better. And then learn how to use the tools that the right wing is going to be using, no matter what we say, and use those tools against them.
No. They're trying to influence the children. So
The LGBTQ plus community is not trying to influence children. They're trying to save children's lives.
Okay, but you save children's lives by influencing them. Like, by influencing children en masse and letting them know that it's okay to be gay, you invariably save the lives of gay kids. By influencing children and letting them know that it's okay to be trans, you invariably save the lives of trans kids. Like that, it's, again, I can disagree with the speaker here, too.
I disagree.
You can't disagree without facts.
We
Otherwise,
can
we're
talk
not
about
operating in reality.
castration. That's not saving lives. That's not saving lives.
Okay.
That's not saving lives.
I want to break that down because
Okay, but that's not a thing that is happening to kids. Like, the kids are not getting castrated, not to any major degree.
It's a scary concept. If people were actually chemically castrating young Americans, I would also be freaking out. I would also have problems. But when we work with the medical professionals, when we talk to the psychologists, when we work with the families, we see that that is not happening. We see that that's not happening. There are 0.01% of young Americans that are receiving non-reversible gender-affirming care, and in 90% of those cases, that was life-saving care. That is life-saving care. Tragedies happen.
No. Let's
Medical
talk about
mistakes
society as a
happen.
whole, okay?
Let's talk about society as a whole, but that's not the so when somebody does this, they're moving the goalpost. I like to use this rhetorical tactic of, if we are going to move the goalpost, do you first admit that within the scope of the argument you are wrong? If you are hell-bent on broadening the scope of the argument, is that you admitting that within the scope that we are in, you are incorrect? And if they are unwilling to do that, you don't let them shift the goalpost. You only let them shift the goalpost once they admit you are correct, and they are willing to admit that in front of an audience. I have no use for either of these things at all.
Or people regret their gender-affirming care, or do they regret knee surgery, hip replacement, LASIK eye surgery more?
Okay, let's pause. We've been voted out by the majority.
Yeah, he already got kicked off. That didn't take long.
Track star. How you doing?
Well, how are you?
Michael. Okay, so your claim is Donald Trump and Elon Musk are doing more grooming, right?
Yes.
Than LGBT activists.
100%.
Groups.
Do you want to hear more about why?
That's
sure.
That is a more coherent version of the argument. The argument is not the LGBTQ is not doing these things. The argument is the right is doing more of it, and when they do it, it's harmful.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, amazing. So Donald Trump's rhetoric has specifically been linked to bullying cases in elementary, middle, and high school. What we see are also that Donald Trump and Elon Musk are working in tandem to access young people through their phone screens. Donald Trump and Elon Musk worked to reduce Twitter protections, and we saw the firing of staff that worked to specifically set children's guidelines. We now see about 1/4 of young people that are online are on Twitter, and they're accessing media because also the algorithm has been changed to make sure that Elon Musk content and far-right content are boosted by about 1,000%, and that's been measured by a variety of studies. And so our young Americans, while they're on their phones without parental supervision, are absorbing rhetoric that psychologists have measured to be damaging not only to their minds, but to their peers' minds. So we've specifically seen hundreds of cases in over 20 states that bullying has increased as a result of Donald Trump and Elon Musk's rhetoric. There was an incident, and it was heartbreaking, where one student was bullied so severely that they attempted suicide because they kept being told, Donald Trump says you need to leave. Donald Trump says you are illegal. And it is a heartbreaking, devastating truth because these young minds are not voters. This has nothing to do with a political campaign. It has everything to do with changing the political culture and working to specifically target young people. That's why they're banning books. That's why they're trying to restrict information that our children have access to and trying to give them a broken worldview so that when they continue to idolize Donald Trump and Elon Musk, they won't know the line of when they've gone too far. And that's a huge problem. We should not have the most powerful person in the world who's setting an example for our young people, who most of our young people say they recognize as the most powerful person in the world, sharing hate speech that we see manifest in elementary school
My name is
classrooms.
Belna Strah,
90%
and I
of
thank you
teachers
for
surveyed
rescuing me.
after
I had
Donald
given
Trump's
myself
first
up for
election
dead,
stated
or worse,
that school
as
climate worsened specifically due to Trump rhetoric and bullying that was directly linked to Donald Trump's name and catchphrases. It's not a coincidence, it's not a parallel, and it's not something that's ever happened before.
Okay. I understand what you're saying. For the sake of the argument, I would say that I agree to an extent, right? Obviously, it depends on what's grooming, right?
Well, let's define grooming.
Yeah. So
what would you define grooming as?
So typically in, most political circles, right, they would say grooming is any kind of act that kind of leads to like a sexual act.
That's sexual grooming.
Yeah,
grooming also works with.
Okay. So I agree with this framing of grooming, though at the same time, when we are generally talking about grooming, it does kind of usually mean sexual, but that does not take into account people who have like groomed somebody for politics, groomed someone to be the king, that kind of situation, which are situations where we've used the word grooming before. So, okay, I agree with this.
Terrorist organizations and cults. So I would say that grooming has a broad definition until you specify.
Say that grooming is not intrinsic or exclusive to the political right? Grooming is...
No, it's not. It's something that happens everywhere.
It happens everywhere. Democrats...
Okay, interesting. So this is a different... Interesting. Okay. So the conversation from the first person was him basically saying, no... It's only happening from the right, and here the conversation is, well, actually, it's happening on both sides, but it's happening more on the right. I am happy that he changed how the conversation was framed, because I disagreed with the original framing of the conversation.
It's horrible. Republicans do it right.
Some people whose favorite color is yellow do it too.
Yes, but my point is that for the sake of argument, I would say I agree, but I kind of reject the initial premise because, and even this ties into your previous point, because I think what you're actually trying to say is that the agenda that LGBT activists...
There is no agenda.
Everyone has an agenda. It doesn't matter.
Well, the LGBTQ activists make it sound like there's a coordinated agenda, when in reality there's a bunch of people who want equal rights.
If you're organized group, you have an agenda.
We're not organized. I promise we're just...
That's okay. So that one is actually true. There isn't an organized LGBTQ movement. There isn't an organized gay agenda. There isn't an organized movement here. There's 1,000 little cells of people who play D&D on weekends. Who really don't like the way the government works right now. You don't actually have an organized LGBTQ movement.
It's organized.
Okay, well, for the sake of argument, let's just say every group has some kind of focus and things they're trying to accomplish, right? That's not exclusive to one party.
Sure.
But the reason I think what you're trying to say is that LGBT groups are...
So, like, okay, so by this framing, LGBTQ is not a movement, which is true. It can't be a movement because it doesn't lack the parameters to be one. The right wing is also not a movement. It is a set of ideologies. But Republicans, that can be a movement because that is an organized group. Republicans is in the politicians. MAGA, can be MAGA is a movement. Like, definitionally, MAGA is a movement. It's as disorganized, but there is actually a central leader within MAGA, and that's Donald Trump. If Donald Trump asks the tides to sway one way, the MAGA movement sways that way. There is no one LGBTQ person that everybody points to. Not that I can, like, none that come to mind. None that come to mind.
Aren't the issue. Gun violence, stuff like that is the
Exactly,
issue.
exactly.
But the reason why I kind of reject that premise is because when it comes to a lot of these medical conversations we have, there is actually no medical consensus. Like where
There is a medical
I think it's
consensus.
But wait, hold on. No, we've had medical consensus for a very long time. What the fuck are you talking about?
There is a medical
No,
consensus.
it's
How
not.
many doctors
If you
are
have,
in the
if
AMA?
you have doctors who disagree, that by definition means there's no.
No. That's not what consensus means. What the fuck? No. Okay, no. This moron. Okay, so consensus is what is reached in science when a majority of peer review has come in favor of the idea. Consensus in the scientific community, which by extension is also the medical community, is about majority, and it is about peer review. It is not about... It's like saying we haven't reached a consensus on vaccines because Andrew Wakefield exists. We haven't reached a consensus on vaccines because RFK Jr. said so. The mere fact that people in authority can have a disagreement does not mean consensus was not reached.
No medical consensus. Also, when you have instances like, have you heard about there was a $10 million NIH-funded study led by, I believe her name was Dr. Johanna.
Yes.
And she did a study and she, found that there were but there weren't as much mental health benefits.
I know what you're referencing, and that's been debunked and disproven. The box is going to pop up here.
Okay, sure. But the thing is...
The box is going to pop up here. Okay, so I'm not familiar with the study that they're talking about here. Is that the Cass report? Yeah, that feels like that's the Cass report, and the Cass report has been completely annihilated. Let's see what Jubilee
I know what you're
says
referencing,
here.
and that's been debunked and
A study by Dr. Johanna Olsen Kennedy found puberty blockers did not lead to mental health improvements. In an interview with New York, she said it most likely is because the children were doing well when they started puberty blockers and continued to be in good shape 2 years later. She questioned the results of her own study and said more research was necessary. Okay, so that may not be the Cass report. That may not be the Cass report. So what that reads to me instead is, oh, we had a set of criterion we were looking for, and that criterion was not met. But that's only on puberty blockers. That is only on puberty blockers. And if that's the people were already in good shape beforehand, and they are considered in good shape mentally afterwards, okay. Like, it makes sense to me that the only reason that your kids that were able to go on puberty blockers were already in better mental shape because their parents allowed them to go on puberty blockers in the first fucking place, which means they had supportive, receptive parents.
disproven. The box is going to pop up here.
Okay, sure. But the thing is, when you have conversation, we have doctors in various groups who don't. There is no such thing as consensus when it comes to science. Like, if you have people who
There's technically no
disagree-
consensus that comes to everything.
Yes,
All
but-
it takes is
but-
one person in the
but-
corner of the
but-
world
but-
going
but-
like,
but the
I
issue-
don't like French
but the
fries, and
issue-
suddenly
but the
French fries
issue
aren't
that
popular.
the issues that conservatives have is the gaslighting. When you say things like, it's not happening, it's not happening, it's not happening. Because that is fun.
That's not gaslighting, though. When we're saying the words, it's not happening, the implicit statement is not to any large degree that merits us caring. Because, like, all you need is one psycho doctor cutting into a kid and going, it's time to remove your genitals, Janice. And now suddenly, but it is happening. Oh my God, it is happening. No, that's not indicative of it happening. That is an indicative that there have been a handful of fringe cases where it has happened, and that has been bad, and we can choose to condemn those events when they happen. That does not mean what you think it means.
Fundamentally not true, and you can't have
The
conversations
way that you're
with
describing,
people.
let me clarify this, because when I say it's not happening at all, I mean the way that you describe it, because it's
Okay, there you go. There you go. God.
Important for people listening and watching not to think that the care that you're describing is happening because, and let's break it down, the care that has been described throughout this episode as chemical castration, as these attacks on young Americans, are not happening at all. Am I saying that any young American has ever regretted receiving gender-affirming care? They have. It's heartbreaking, and I want our medical professionals to continue to learn more and do better.
Okay,
but to say what they're
no, but the
doing
thing-
is happening
hold on,
is a
hold on,
lie,
hold on,
and I
hold on,
won't excuse
hold
a
on,
lie.
Because the issue is that when you have other medical groups, I think you referenced the American Psychological Association
And psychiatric.
Yes.
And pediatric.
Even
medical.
they have said that when it comes to gender affirming care, a lot of kids when they go through adolescence, when they go through
A lot of kids. What does that word mean? What does a lot of mean in this context? A lot of can be 6. To me, as a childless dude, 6 is a lot of fucking kids. That's a Catholic amount of kids. A lot of is an unquantifiable, non-specific statement.
puberty no longer have that same gender dysphoria. And it goes back to my
Do you know why?
Again, the a lot of statement. You need enough. So like, there's a concept in the medical community about statistical significance. You need enough people to be statistically significant for a point to matter. Without numbers, we don't have the way to figure out what that statistical significance is.
Why?
But hold on.
Okay,
Because
care
pause.
worked.
You've been voted out by the majority. Please
I appreciate
return
you.
to the chair.
You have a good vibe.
I disagree.
Love your shirt.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so you're saying that Elon Musk and Trump are grooming kids.
So I'm less interested in the grooming one. I want to move on to the next question. I've become bored with this one.
Healthcare costs and gun violence harm young Americans. LGBTQ plus acceptance does not.
Okay. The solid one. Let's see what is said here. How does somebody fight against
I
that?
just want to make sure
Can we agree
heard-
that
yeah.
can we agree that our shared value for this debate should be that all young Americans have safe and healthy childhoods?
Absolutely.
Okay, beautiful.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I heard that right. Young
Yeah.
Americans referencing children.
Yes.
So then I want to switch the focus on what the plus represents in LGBT.
I want to switch the focus. I hear what you're talking about. I want to switch the focus. Oh, okay. I can't argue based on the merits of the debate that were brought up. I would like to instead argue about something completely different.
DQ plus.
First, I want to state that gun violence has been the leading cause of death for American children for the last 4 years, and 6 American children die every single day from gun violence, and 4 million young Americans are currently uninsured, which makes them 60% more likely to die, while LGBTQ plus acceptance risks no American children's lives.
I'm not in disagreement with that
Amazing.
per se, necessarily.
I love that.
But where we're headed, right? That plus is a placeholder for MAPS, for minor attractive persons, minor attractive
No, it is
persons.
not. That would be insane.
Absolutely
That's
it is.
pedophilia.
I'm glad that you think it's pedophilia.
Wait. Who legitimately argues that minor attracted people are valid? No. So, whether an attraction is valid is based on whether that attraction can be meted out in a way that involves the consent of other people. There is no way for a minor attracted person to to have that attraction validated by the person they are attracted to. Because by the nature of that attraction, the person they're attracted to cannot consent. They cannot consent. Because they are a child. So, again, what this person is doing is saying, oh, I can't argue on the merits of the actual argument, so I'm going to shift the argument to the made-up pedophiles that I need to talk about. This is not to say that there are not people who are going to be in my comments section going, actually, I'm an MAP, and I think I'm valid. No, the fuck you're not. Shut the goddamn fuck up. No. If you think that you are an MAP, if you feel like you are attracted to minors, then that is a thing that you need to go to therapy about. That is not a thing for you to seek community over, because a community of pedophiles only brings about fucking harm. I'm sorry, no. As somebody, and I'm gonna speak from experience on this one. I'm gonna speak from experience on this one because this shit matters to me. So I had a friend when I was growing up and I've made a video on this before, but I'm going to say it again. I had a friend when I was growing up. This friend was a year older than me, and this friend was one of the first friends I made in a card shop playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Dude bought me a hot dog, and it was like as a poor kid, somebody going to the local gas station and getting a hot dog for me, like that was fucking astounding, right? Especially when I was, you know, like an 8 or 9 year old kid, and this was a 10-year-old kid who's just like, here, let me go ahead and let me get something for you, that'll help you out. Like that shit stuck with me, and we became friends up until the end of time. Well, the end of a thing that happened. So, this individual ended up moving to Texas to get into a relationship with somebody, and then ended up moving back to, they used to live in Florida, ended up moving to Georgia because I brought them to Georgia, because this was one of my oldest friends, one of my longest known friends, and I wanted to be able to spend time with them. We were going to become roommates. We did become roommates for a very long time. Now, fast forward to the day that I had to adopt a cat from this person, and I had to do so because they gave me a call and said, hey, can you come watch my cat for a little bit, for a few days? And I said, why? I said, oh, I'm being arrested. Is that right, officer? And the officer on the phone, yes, okay. So the officer is saying that he's being arrested. Okay. I go to the house to take care of the cat there. When I go to that house, what do I see on the kitchen table, on the kitchen counter? I see a notice of seizure and a list of items that were seized. I decide to look at this because I want some context for why my friend has been arrested. And the items that were seized were all data-holding electronics. Now, why were they all data-holding electronics? That felt weird. That's really specific. But the computer, game systems, anything that could hold data and communications, all confiscated. Turns out, there was an operation, and I am going to show you this just so that you know what I'm talking about and know that this is not a story being made out of whole cloth. Give me a second. Operation Golden Eagle targets online child predators. In Cartersville, Georgia, where I used to live, here's the list of people who were arrested. Operation Golden Eagle took months of planning and involved the collaboration of 12 law enforcement agencies. The arrestees, ranging from ages 24 to 64, traveled from areas of Bartow County, Georgia, with the intent to meet children for sex. 11 of those arrested believed they were going to a location to meet with a child and engage in pre-arranged sex acts. One was arrested for possession of child sexual abuse material found during the search warrant execution. GBI Digital Forensics investigators were on hand at the operation to forensically process 16 electronic devices that were seized as evidence during the operation. Well, that's fucking spooky. That's spooky as shit. The goal of Operation Golden Eagle was to identify persons who engage in sexually explicit communication with children on the internet and arrange to engage in sex acts with those children. Travel to meet those children for the purpose of having sex. Additionally, the operation targeted those who were willing to exploit children by purchasing sex with a minor. Online child predators visit chat rooms and websites on the internet, find children, begin convos with them, introduce sexual content, and arrange a meeting with the children for the purpose of having sex. The children these predators target are both boys and girls. Since 2014, the Georgia ICAC task force has arrested over 178 million people in other operations. So, last year, I think it was last year, this individual was sentenced, and I was not able to see how long they were sentenced for. So this individual was part of a group, a network of people who had similar attractions. And now there is a difference between people who have the attraction and people who decide that they are going to act out the attraction. Acting out the attraction is the thing that is dangerous. The attraction on its own, arguing against that specifically, is a bit thought-crimey. But the point is, I am completely against you forming a fucking group of these people. Sudahai, thank you very much for the follow. I am completely against forming a group of these people based on that shared identity, because I am convinced that that is the end result of forming those groups. That is the shit that happened under my goddamn fucking nose. We hadn't been roommates for years, but I have no idea how many of these acts this person, were involved with while we were living together. I have no fucking idea. I have no idea the monster that I brought into my fucking state. Into what was the city I lived in. This is something that hits far too goddamn close to home for me, because I watched this shit happen. In hindsight. I didn't ever have enough information while this shit was happening to know that it was happening, to know that people were being harmed. I have no idea the time frames. But what I do have is the anger. What I do have is my opinions based on that. So when somebody claims that somebody else is trying to sneak pedophilia into the LGBTQ community, that shit pisses me the fuck off. Because now suddenly you're saying that there's a group of people who just want to be validated for their beliefs and want to be seen alongside people like my girlfriend, who's pan. Well, not really pan. Ace, but has been with men and women. I see you as trying to group those two people the fuck together, and they do not belong the fuck together.
And it's insane.
Well, it's defined as
but
pedophilia.
I think you understand and you know that your side of the aisle does not feel that way.
No, it
That there
doesn't
is
at
a
all.
large
Who
movement
commits the most
currently-
acts of pedophilia in the United States of America? I'll give you a hint.
Do you identify the LGBTQ as a political movement?
No, not at all.
See, we're going to fundamentally disagree right there.
Well,
Because it shouldn't be a political movement. Okay, it's a political movement by necessity, but there is no world in which gay people have the right to live and be happy should be a political statement.
why is
so-
why is the LGBTQ plus community a political movement?
It's first of all, it's considered a victim class. Let's start there. They
A
have,
victim class?
They have
What's a victim class?
They
Wow, why is it considered a victim class, my guy? Is it maybe because of people like you?
have specific rights and protections. That,
They have the same rights and protections as all Americans,
That's
or
not
they
true.
should, and we're working to get there.
That's not
Because
true.
right now, unfortunately, you're right, it's not. Right now, they don't. Right now, LGBTQ plus Americans have
They don't have the same rights and protections because you can use the fucking trans panic defense when you kill a trans woman. What? There is no straight panic defense. What the fuck?
less rights and liberties than the standard American.
How do you-
Than heterosexual
Please
cisgender
tell me
Americans.
how they have less rights and privileges.
There's a variety of things. For example, there's legislation in several states that work to prevent trans women from accessing the bathrooms that relate to their gender identity. There's prevention of
So we're talking about
LGBTQ plus
trans now.
discussion in education.
It said LGBTQ. What the fuck do you think the T means, you rube?
There's efforts right now from our president to work and roll back rights that have been guaranteed to LGBTQ plus Americans for decades. And it's really, really important that we recognize that, because right now, LGBTQ plus Americans do not share the same liberties and rights as cisgender heterosexual Americans do. And to pretend that it's not happening is really weird. I would ask you, what
No, so-
rights do you think LGBTQ plus people are asking for that are special
So
rights?
this is where we're going to fundamentally disagree.
Yeah.
Really, because so first and foremost,
Yeah.
To be quite honest, I believe, and that's not that I believe. I know that the LGBTQ movement is a Marxist movement. I believe
it's not a Marxist
I believe it was
movement.
installed.
It's not a Marxist.
How is it a Marxist movement? Wait, hold on. Is it so the LGBTQ movement cannot by definition, if you even were to call it a movement, it cannot by definition be inherently a Marxist movement. Do you want to know why? An LGBT movement would be based on the sexual identity, on the gender identity of the people involved. And a Marxist movement, by definition, is going to be based on class identity. Marxism is about class conflict. LGBTQ is about gender and sexual identity. You can't have this argument, because this argument doesn't hold any fucking water. What?
Movement. That's a funny thought.
I
but
let
it's
you
not a
finish
Marxist movement.
talking. Let me finish.
Okay, but you're just saying things.
No, I'm not. I'm saying things that I know. I believe you've developed and
I'm saying things I know. No, you're saying things you believe. Let's talk about knowledge and belief. God, I'm going to go back to my philosopher skeptic days. So, knowledge, my definition of knowledge, is something that you believe that also happens to be true. You can have a series of beliefs, but whether or not you know something is completely contingent on the thing you believe being true. There is not a concerted LGBTQ movement. There is a LGBTQ loosely affiliated community of people, and there is a nomenclature called the LGBTQ movement, but there's no inherent leader. There's no inherent organization. There's no way to stitch all of that shit together in a way that is coherent. So you already don't have the trappings to go like, it's also Marxist, because it can't be. Because there's people who want LGBTQ rights who are right-wing, who definitely do not want to participate in Marxism of any kind. Even if you describe Marxism without calling it Marxism, they're going to think that shit's actually pretty rad.
and put yourself in this sort of matrix fictional reality, and you feel safe there. I'm glad you do. But here's the problem. Where we're headed is why I'm concerned.
Where are we headed?
I'm not. I'll tell you where we're headed. We're headed towards maps. Whether or not you agree with that is regardless.
what's
We're
evidence-
headed-
what evidence?
But for us to be headed towards maps, we need to have a reason that we are headed there. We need to have like a reason that we got there.
Or that we're headed towards maps.
I mean, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Even on the conservative side, they're opening up the discussion on whether or not this can be considered a legitimate sexual orientation.
No
to be
one is
attracted
saying
to.
that pedophilia is a legitimate sexual orientation.
Okay, this is
Yeah, find me the person who is arguing that, and then that person will mysteriously disappear, and then you can try to find another person who's arguing that, and then that person will also mysteriously disappear, and then the Shadow Wolf, thank you for resubscribing. Or you're gonna find people who you say argue that and don't actually argue that, and you've just misconstrued what they've said.
important actually that you're saying this right now, because where we're headed, I'm very secure that we're heading this direction. We're at a certain
Okay,
point
then
in
that
time.
would be really concerning.
At a
Then I
certain
would
point in time,
understand.
and I agree that we agree with that. But going full circle, okay?
Yeah.
Who started the gay rights movement?
Black trans women.
No, Harry Hay started the gay rights movement in the 1950s. What party did he belong to?
You tell me.
He belonged to the Communist Party. What book and what's
So I have a question: Is that an actual fact that matters?
society did
What
he
would you
start
say
at
is
the
the
time? No, no, no,
LGBTQ plus movement? Because I would define it as
Stop
a
trying to
civil rights
derail
movement
where-
in modern
stop
history.
trying to
Whereas
derail.
you're acting.
He's not trying to derail. He's trying to get you to be more specific, because when you say, oh no, the movement, TM, was started by this one guy, first of all, that is a narrow-minded version of how movements begin. Movements don't begin because one person says, yes, this is how it's going to be. Movements usually begin organically because a lot of people begin a certain way, a lot of people believe a certain way. The only way it happens in reverse is when somebody already has a fuck ton of power or clout.
No, the
we're
existence
sticking
of
on this
LGBTQ
topic.
plus people.
We are still
But you're not talking
because
about anything.
ultimately you're leading to deconstructionism. You want a gray box society. That's
want a
the
gray
goal.
What is a gray box society?
The fact that you don't know that is exactly the problem. You are.
You want this thing. I don't know what that thing is. That's the problem. What the fuck? You want this. You don't know what it is. That's the issue. What? No. If this person doesn't know what a gray box society is, then chances are they don't want that thing.
No, I mean, what do you
Compartmentalize
think a gray
in
box
this
society is?
I know what it is. It's a genderless society. It's where the individual is stripped from all individuality. That's what it is.
I think
That is where
allowing
we're
people to
headed. The
express
fact that you
themselves
can't-
How is that a genderless society? If a trans woman says, my gender is female, my gender is girl, my gender is this, that person is not saying, by extension, and also I want to live in a genderless society. They are saying, this is my gender, give it to me, please.
As
acknowledge
individuals,
that
is more
shows me
individuality.
that you're already in the matrix.
You're already
stuck
in the-
there.
oh, it's a
You're
fucking
in this
Andrew Tate
world
fan!
that provides all these protections for
Yeah.
you. All these, the fact that you can even sit here, the fact that this
What extra
platform
protections do
exists.
LGBTQ plus people receive in the
Do you
United
want
States of
anecdotal
America?
experiences?
I want
or do
any
you-
evidence that you
the
have.
fact that it even
You don't
the
have
fact
evidence.
that it's even a
You
discussion.
don't have evidence. It's not a discussion.
It's a sexual
You
orientation.
saying something doesn't mean
it is
that it's
a
a discussion.
sexual orientation. It should be between
What is
two
a sexual
people.
orientation? What should be?
When
Dude,
it
what are you
arrives,
talking about?
What am I talking about? I'm talking about the fact that it's even a movement to begin with. It doesn't deserve.
There's a civil
to be
rights
a
movement
movement.
that
It
is
doesn't
described
deserve
as
to be
the
a civil
LGBTQ
rights. It doesn't deserve a civil right. That's my whole point. It's
LGBTQ plus people don't
it's
deserve civil
self-narrative.
rights. I would say that the
The fact
majority
that
of
you can-
American
the
principle
fact-
would disagree
no,
with what
the
you're
fact
saying
that
right
you
now.
can- the
I
fact
think
that you
all
can
people in the United
self-narrative-
States of America are equal, and you don't.
I don't.
Let's pause. You've been voted out by the majority. Please return to your seat.
I appreciate you.
I'm gonna try to.
I'm gonna try to calm down. Yeah, you need to calm down and touch grass, my guy. You're a goddamn psychopath.
Hello.
Hi.
Nice to meet you. I'm Angelina.
Nice to meet you.
So
Can we
I-
agree that our shared value would be young Americans deserve safe and healthy childhoods?
100%. And
Okay,
I
awesome.
think gun violence is an issue, and I think healthcare is an issue. However,
agree.
what I would like to talk about today is children being targeted and transitioned at a young age. I don't believe
What
it is.
children are being targeted and transitioned?
So currently in the United States, you can start gender transitioning a child as early as they're starting puberty, and that's anywhere from 8 to 13. And so
No, you can't. The reason puberty blockers exist is because you can't do that. You cannot actually start transitioning somebody at fucking 13. We have zero evidence of that.
at that age, you
How
can start
many
putting them on
people-
puberty blockers, and which is not
Starting puberty blockers is not starting somebody on the path to transition. It is buying them time to figure out if they need to transition.
reversible, by the way.
Puberty blockers are reversible. So the way puberty blockers work is they stop your receptors from receiving the hormones that your body starts producing. Once you stop using the puberty blockers, your body starts being able to receive those hormones as if your body was going through its puberty, normally and naturally. When that happens, we see all of the telltale signs of late-stage puberty. And here's the funny thing. Late-stage puberty happens completely naturally. This is based on the medical science that we know and understand.
Griffins this side of Airy Peak.
Okay, so
And
how
so-
many irreversible gender-affirming care procedures have been done on ages 13 or under in the United States of America?
Listen, just the idea that you even put them on puberty blockers, that's irreversible. Do you understand that?
Not all puberty blockers are irreversible, and new treatments are coming in every day. So
okay,
let me break down the
no,
stats.
No. Puberty
Also,
blockers,
Jeff
do you know
Keith,
what
thank you
puberty
for
blockers are? Puberty
resubscribing.
blockers is Lupron. That is the brand name for puberty blockers, Lupron.
Oh my god, it's the fucking Lupron shit! It's somebody who doesn't understand what a poison is! Oh no, it's this shit again! It's somebody
Just
going,
browsing
your
my
kid
wares, or
shouldn't
is
be...
there something specific I
Your
can
kid
help you
shouldn't
find
have
to get-
Adderall. That's meth. Well, bitch, did you know that the way poisons work in the system is you have to have a certain amount of poison in the system for it to be poisonous? It is not a problem in your body until it starts negatively affecting your body. All poisons work this way. Did you know that water can poison you? You can get water toxicity for drinking too much water before your body has a chance to metabolize it. It actually breaks the cell membrane walls in your body. We shouldn't use water. We shouldn't drink water. It's horrible. Look at all the terrible
These
things it
great
does to you.
beasts know
Water
paths that you
toxicity
can't find on foot.
has
They'll
such a
get
high
you.
lethality rate. You're an idiot.
Lupron is used on children, 8 to 13-year-olds, to pause their puberty.
Okay, so let's break
It is
this
the same
down.
drug used in chemical castration for pedophiles.
Okay, cool. So now we're talking about the chemical castration thing. Again, it doesn't matter that it's used there as well. It doesn't matter that an addled meth addict had their life ruined by amphetamines when we are talking about giving Adderall to somebody who's suffering from ADHD.
Thought that
It
8 to
stops their
13-year-olds.
sex drive.
Okay, if I thought 8 to 13-year-olds would be chemically castrated, that would be horrible. That would
Okay.
be evil. That would be unacceptable.
So why-
That's not
why
what's
are you
happening.
a-
Well, no,
why
let's
is
break
the
it down.
LGBTQ+
I would love to
movement
break it down
advocating
for
for
you.
that?
No one's
Yep.
advocating for that. Let's break it down. So,
I like the theater kid energy there.
1% to 3% of the youth population in the United States of America are trans. About 15% of that 1 to 3% receive reversible or partially reversible gender-affirming
What do you
care.
mean by reversible?
Only.
What do you mean by
I'm talking about
reversible?
hormone blockers. I'm talking about
Not
hormone replacement
reversible.
therapy. It is reversible. In many cases,
so-
so I understand some of these things are not fully reversible. That's why it's reversible and partially reversible. Some hormone blockers are not fully reversible, but the World Health Organization, the American Medical Association, the American Psychological Association, and the American Psychiatric Association work to set standards and approve
I
that all of these
understand.
cares are life-saving. What we see is that the vast majority of people
No,
who
you don't.
receive this care never end up regretting its care. Do you
Not
know what
true.
the regret
Not
rate
true.
for reversible care is in the United States of America for transgender youth?
Any rate of it is enough to not do this to children.
Do you know the
Listen,
rate,
it's the
though?
But that doesn't... No, you dumb fucking bitch! Okay, no. No. We're not gonna do this any rate. That's such a stupid goddamn argument. Let me explain. Let me articulate. If a vaccine can injure you, if there is any rate that it can injure you, then no vaccine should be given to anybody. Congratulations. You've now taken the death toll from polio to, from 1 in a billion to a much higher rate, closer to 1 in 100,000. You have now argued effectively that if there is even a small chance that a negative effect can happen because of something, then you shouldn't do it. You have now argued against getting in a car because there's a chance of a car accident happen. Any rate of a car accident is a reason not to get in a car. Any rate of addiction is a reason not to touch caffeine. Any rate of something is now suddenly an argument against engaging in goddamn fucking reality, you dumb fucking... We're moving to the next person. We're moving to the next person. This person makes me angry. I do not understand why she is making me more angry. I'm moving on to the next one. What is this next one? Anti-LGBTQ plus policies are anti-Christian and anti-American. Okay, let's hear it out.
Anti-LGBTQ plus policies are anti-Christian and anti-American.
Got my running on shoes today.
You are fabulous.
You are fabulous. So let's start with the less obvious. Let's go anti-American. What is like your point in saying that? How is it anti-American to say that protecting our children, right? Our children is our only thing we have. It's the future, right?
Agreed.
How's that anti-American?
Our children are not the only thing I have. I have these Magic the Gathering cards. The Shield with the Apocalypse is looking mighty sexy.
When I
Protecting our children would not be anti-American.
Okay, but the LGBTQ policies, anti those, right? You're saying is anti-American.
Yes.
When you think of children, right? You think
Yeah.
of what? I have a 9-year-old, right?
I think of the future.
Okay, the future, right? Do you have a child?
No, I
No.
don't.
Do you want children?
Maybe.
Okay, all right, so good. You want to have a child, and you want this child to be what? Protected, correct?
Absolutely.
Can you agree with me on that? Okay, good. When you think of your child being protected, what is an issue you don't agree with? What's something you don't agree with?
Gun violence and healthcare costs.
Okay, gun violence and healthcare costs. Do you come from a family that didn't have healthcare?
I come from a family that struggled with healthcare access, but had healthcare access for me.
That makes sense. Okay, so you had it. So you don't want your child to be negatively influenced by gun violence, correct?
Correct.
Or by not being able to have access to healthcare.
Absolutely.
So if there is an agenda, and I know you say there's not an agenda, but if there is a mass media awareness that's pushing a narrative of saying, and we kind of see it, right? Guns in all the movies, right?
Yeah.
Guns in the music videos, guns in this, rap, hip hop songs, all this stuff, you'd probably...
Are we really doing the rap corrupts the youth shit? Really? No. No. We're not doing the kids these days, rap corrupts the youth shit. I thought that we had moved past this dumb fucking shit in the 90s.
not want your child to be exposed to that, correct?
No, I would make sure they're educated about what guns are, and I would make sure they're accessing this information at age-appropriate age. That's a false comparison because...
Why is that a false comparison?
Guns aren't people.
Okay.
And people, in their intrinsic identities, aren't murderous. Guns are designed to kill things.
Yes.
LGBT plus people are designed to exist and live and love and
they're
earn
humans,
money
correct?
and work and be people. Yes.
Okay, they're humans. All right,
Absolutely.
so let's go with that. We'll take that angle. So you're talking about humans, and you're saying that humans are designed to be themselves, right? And intrinsically themselves.
Yes, we're getting so far away from the claim,
No,
though.
we're coming back
Okay,
because you're talking
No,
about
we
anti-American.
are. So what we are doing is we are trying to introduce what is called a loaded question. We are trying to introduce loaded language, loaded with assumptions, to bring somebody to a point. You're trying to lead a horse to water, but you're trying to make sure that the water is poisoned.
And I said, I gave you that example of guns. So for me as a mom, I don't want my child, and I'm just going to say the alphabet community because it's easier than LBGT.
What about queer and trans?
No, that's fucking condescending, you dumb bitch. No, you can just say LGBTQ. The alphabet community, LGBTQ people. One is few, or even LGBTQ community, alphabet community. It is not that many more syllables one way you say it, and it's even less syllables when you say it the other way. But one of them sounds a lot more condescending.
I think queer and trans is easier.
Queer and trans. All right. So I don't want my son exposed to queer and trans. You didn't say you don't like the word agenda. I'm trying to be nice and
queer and trans people.
No, you're trying to be Southern nice, which means you're saying bless your heart, but you're really saying I'm an arsler.
Trans people, okay? I don't want him exposed to that.
Why?
I'm a Christian and I'm faith-based, and I believe
I'm Christian
that
too.
My son should have his testicles intact until forever.
Nobody
not until
is
he's
saying
18.
that he
I want him
shouldn't.
to have his testicles forever.
Who the fuck
and
is saying
he actually just
that?
asked me about that last night. He said, "Mom, I think my testicles are dropping a little." I said, "No, sweetheart. You're 9. Enjoy. You got a long ways to go." Why? As parents, we want to protect our children as long as they can.
Oh, 100%.
Right? Okay, you agree. We are in agreement with that.
Yeah,
Yes, I love that.
100%.
All right, so let's keep
Go
going.
team.
I would never, in my right mind, let my son, first of all, attend a school, a public school. Second of all, attend...
I would never let him attend a public school. Oh my god, so many terrible things happening there. No, attending a public school is one of the best fucking things to happen to me. No. You're an idiot, and I'll explain why you're an idiot. So, when you go to a public school versus a private school, you get to actually experience people from the real fucking world. When I was in a Christian private school, the only reality that was given to me was a fucking fake reality that didn't actually exist. One where the world was 6,000 years old and we needed to fucking kill the gays. That was the reality that was given to me when I was a child. When I went to public school, the reality that was given to me was infinitely more accurate than the one that I was fed in private school. Nah, fuck private school.
That's a privileged choice, and that's awesome that you're able to make it.
Correct, and I've worked very hard for that. Where there are clowns, as you called them, drag queens there.
No, I made a comparison that clowns are entertainers and drag queens are entertainers.
But they are very much so different. A clown is
Depends on the
what
context.
No, not really. So a clown is an entertainer based on the absurdity of the outfit. It is based on the absurdity of the practice. A drag performer is based on the absurdity of gender norms. They are similar in that they are both entertainers that both often use costume as a part of their act. But they are not the same because of what their act is critiquing.
context.
Okay, let me finish. Let me just describe, and then we'll go
We're
back.
so far away from the claim.
No, we're not. We're
Okay.
talking about an agenda here, and you're talking about it being anti-American, anti-faith, anti-Christian. I'm saying that that's not the
No,
truth.
I'm saying anti-LGBTQ plus policies
Yes.
inherently contradict the fundamental
it
values of
doesn't.
Americanism and Christianity.
doesn't,
But what
because-
is the fundamental value of America?
Okay, well, we'll go back to Christianity. But let me finish my point, as you said you would. Okay, so I'm not letting my son be exposed because you're kind of in denial, sweetheart. You're saying that a clown is the same thing or same
Nope.
humor. Hold on, let me finish. Let me finish,
But-
please.
but
dear.
no, but-
as the same
but you're
as
being
a
wrong.
drag queen. And I know for a fact what comes. If you just Google the word drag queen and children or kindergarten, you see what goes on. Those shows, the girls are in, or the men rather, are in lingerie, in scantily clad, very, very sexually explicit behavior, crazy hair and makeup.
That
and
would be awful.
right, and it happens, as well as the infiltration
You know who else is in crazy hair and makeup? Clowns.
of the books in our children's school. These trans books are being put into our kids' school. I know for a fact. That's why I pulled him. I saw these books in there. You said yourself, if you had a child, you would not want him exposed to things that you didn't approve of, or you'd want him to be, quote, educated as to what is right. Why do we have to educate children to mental health challenges when men decide to castrate themselves and take off their genitals and reattach new genitals, and then they demand equal rights? That's not okay. And I'm not letting
You didn't make a fucking cogent point, woman.
my child get exposed to that. That is anti-Christian, and that is anti-American.
You never defined what an American value is. You can't say it's anti-Christian or anti-American without defining what a Christian value is or an American value is. That's just saying something into the ether. The end result of all the words you said and the way you strung them together is, I disagree with this. Okay, cool. You disagree with it. Now what? Like, it doesn't matter.
Okay, so I don't find that to be a claim that addressed my claim at all.
Okay.
I would say that the fundamental value of Americanism is freedom, and the fundamental value of Christianity
Freedom
is
to
love,
what?
and anti-LGBTQ policies are contradictory to both of those
Okay,
beliefs. But back
God
to
is
your
love.
point, because you took us there.
Okay.
The majority of drag queen book hours have never had a reported incident. In fact, there's no pattern of reported incident, and there are cherry-picked incidents where bad people did bad things, not because they're drag queens, but because they're bad people. And
So
those
why are we
incidents
allowing
occur
it?
in
So
less
why
than
are
a
we
percent of
Wait, you dumb bitch. Okay, let me go ahead and use your argument against you, and then we're going to move to the next one because I'm already fucking bored of her. So, if you are going to use the standard that there was one incident, therefore we should dismantle the entire institution, why should we support any of it whatsoever? Cool. Then we should not support, in any way, shape, and form, Christian institutions. Because of the high rates of sexual abuse from Christian institutions towards children. We should not support churches existing because there has been a non-zero amount of instances from the Catholic Church, from Jehovah's Witnesses, from the Mormons, from Baptists, from the fucking IFB. There has been a non-zero amount of sexual abuses towards children in these institutions. Therefore, these institutions should not exist. That is not my point. That is your point. That is the point you just made. I'm so glad I don't do live debate anymore. I could not handle somebody going, that's not what I mean, that's different, that's not what I mean, that's different. Yes, the fuck it is. Yes, the fuck it is. The fact that you can't articulate your point in a way that is actually coherent is a you problem, not a problem of the listener.
places.
Allowing this.
So what I would say is that drag queens have no statistical correlation with pedophilic behavior, with sexual violence, or
That's not true. That is not
That's
hold up
not
in the club,
true. Okay, so
or
provide data.
in sexually exposing
We don't
themselves
go
to
I don't go
children.
to club. What
I think
about-
clubs are
you
fun.
said
Okay, we're
faith-
getting so far
no,
away.
American
Hold.
and faith-based values. Let's go back to that.
Oh.
American faith.
Let's go back. No, when you've made a dumb point, admit you've made a dumb point and move the fuck on. Take the L and move the fuck on. Moving the goalpost does not actually help you the way that you think it does. It just makes you look uneducated. It makes you look like somebody who has an agenda. It makes you look like somebody who doesn't care. It makes you look like somebody who is more concerned with being right, more concerned with feeling right than being somebody who actually is right. You care more about the feeling of being correct, the feeling of superiority, the feeling of just rage. You care more about that than you actually care about the real lives of the people who are affected by your rhetoric.
Based values. Why the trans movement is not that, or is antithesis of that?
Trans people are people. What I am telling you is that if your child is exposed to trans and queer individuals, they're no more likely to decide to become trans or queer.
Not true.
Nope, it is true.
That
It
is
statistically proven.
true.
It is so true. It is data driven. It is
Okay,
medically
keep going.
proven. It is
I have been, we'll say, subjected to the existence of trans people. It could be the fact that one of them is asleep in my bed right now. I don't want to be trans. I engage in ragging on my own gender due to my own apathy about it. I use a female avatar on the internet. If we're not going to bring up data, then I'm not going to bring up data. I'll just use myself as a personal anecdote. That is not how we actually do knowledge. But I'm going to pretend it is for a little bit because it shows my fucking point. You would think with my high exposure to trans people that I would have a higher chance of being trans, but no, my chance of being trans was set in stone with my hormones. My chance of being trans was set in stone based on my upbringing. The actual people around me do not change that. It is the way that I was born, and it is stuff that happens early enough in life that it's not something that we can actually pin the fuck down. You don't have a higher chance of being trans when you've hung out with trans people. You have a higher chance of coming out of the closet, which means you were already goddamn trans. The only thing that changed, the true thing that changed there, is whether you felt comfortable coming out of the closet and being that version of yourself, which some people would say is a more genuine version of yourself. When I say it is your upbringing, I am not saying that you were next to a trans person and therefore you became trans. There is a non-zero chance that there are some factors in raising people that can lead to them being gay or trans. There's a non-zero chance. But we don't have all the data on it, and it's also not very high, and it also just doesn't fucking matter. Because the thing that causes somebody to become that, one thing we do understand greatly, is that it's not being around a gay or being around a trans. That doesn't affect that.
It is psychologically
I'll let
proven.
you believe
It
your
is
lie.
proven.
Go ahead.
No. It's proven by hundreds
Go
of
ahead.
thousands of people, and I have no idea why you believe when you're not educated on this subject.
Not educated.
Not in a like.
I'm not educated on this subject. The only thing I talked about was Googling a thing. I Googled a picture. I'm educated. Why are you saying I'm not? Fucking...
You don't know what you're talking about, Way, but
I
you
do,
need a
dear.
medical professional. You need a psychological professional
don't need
to
one, but
address
you
this
might.
care. No, to address.
I don't need one, but you might, you condescending fucking bitch. We're moving on. Who's this person?
Hello.
Get a little more time this time.
Let's do it.
Alrighty. First, I guess I want to... Hey again.
Okay, what's this
The
claim?
last claim is politicians banning books is more dangerous than drag queens reading them.
Okay, cool. Banning books is bad
Hello.
by
Get a little
comparison.
more time this time.
Let's do it.
Alrighty. First, I guess I want to say, wouldn't both, I guess from the arguments that I've heard, I could be wrong, and
Yeah.
feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, are they not both propaganda? Kind of like going back to that question where...
Yeah, it is actually both a form of propaganda. You are entirely correct. The argument is not whether they are propaganda. The argument is whether or not that propaganda is harmful. Because the United States has propaganda that it uses all the time to justify every goddamn thing it does, and we call that patriotism.
We went to grooming, right? We go to grooming. I
Yeah.
think when it came to that argument, in my opinion, I think where you were getting confused was that you were getting propaganda and
confused.
grooming. I've said that's why I said in my opinion, how I interpreted
true,
your responses.
true,
Yeah.
okay.
How I interpreted is that when you were phrasing things, it was in my head, you should have been substituting propaganda. There's nothing inherently wrong with that. Like grooming is like forcing
That's awesome, Aaron.
a belief upon somebody. I believe that's
It's
how
not
I would
always
inter-
physical.
Yeah, but
And
it's still,
propaganda
it's
is
still,
political
it's still
communication.
involuntary. Now, these kids are being given information at a young age, And they're just making the choice. It's just more appealing to those kids.
It's also about the impact. A lot of this information is lies, and it leads to direct harm for those children and other children around them. And it is meant to be done to change their thinking and patterns of behavior such that Donald Trump and Elon Musk are able to exploit them for power. But right now, we're discussing book bans and drag queens. Would you agree that politicians banning books, which has only ever in human history led to authoritarianism, is more dangerous than drag queens reading books, which is proven to have no correlation to sexual violence whatsoever?
Well, I guess it's.
I think we should admit.
Well. I guess. I went up here to speak, but I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about.
That a drag queen, which is almost always a man in a fun women's costume.
Fun is relative. Fun is that's a relative
in
term.
Adult spaces.
It's relative. Fun is relative. League of Legends is a fun game. Fun is relative, but I can still say that sentence, even though I don't play that goddamn game anymore because it's no longer fun to me.
It is often more sexy. So what we're saying is, I think it's just a hard piece of imagery for people who don't want diverse gender expression to swallow. And so we're like, oh, that's sexual violence. Oh, they're trying to sexualize their children. But psychologists and medical doctors have actually evaluated those events because of how many horrible claims that have been made on a baseless amount of hatred. And what we found is that there is no sexual violence, there is no sexual perversion, and there is no increase in sexual confusion. That's the most important part, because I can understand someone saying, oh, the drag queen has the best of intention, but now my child is confused. They measured it, they tracked it, they studied it. The child doesn't get confused. The child sees someone in a fun costume, they're like, that is fun. And suddenly, reading, which is very boring for many young children, they're willing to pay attention. They're willing to be there. And what we also see is queer and trans children in those spaces are less likely to be depressed and anxious when they witness someone who is experiencing diverse gender expression in their space. Yes.
Okay.
So, once again, I'm going to go back to propaganda because I really think that's what this question is about. There are two ways to do that. Propaganda, which again, will say.
So he chose not to address anything that was said by him. He chose not to address any of those words. Said, actually, can we go back to the propaganda thing? Can we go back to that? No. Maybe we can talk about
incoming.
The thing that you were actually talking about.
The agenda, as we've established before, I'm not saying that LGBT has an agenda, but it's got a title, therefore it probably has a group that has an agenda. If it's got a title, clearly you guys agreed on something, right? I think that's fair to say. I think everything that would have a title, clearly there's a group.
Do women have a coordinated political agenda? Do white people have a coordinated?
Are they feminists? Are they? I mean, I think everybody.
But
no.
So your statement was anybody that has a title. Women is definitionally a title. That is the point that was made there. Like, women do not have a coordinated agenda. Yes, feminists have an agenda, but it's also not really coordinated. Any of you who have spent any amount of time on Tumblr can tell you the feminists do not have a coordinated agenda. I don't think coordination is the word that's best to describe anything that goes on that website or ever went on that website in general. Said, oh my God, Wannabe Cowboy is exhausting. They're all exhausting because listening to people be wrong is exhausting.
Everyone has an agenda. You can't say that you don't have an agenda.
You're describing people fighting for their human rights.
AOE incoming.
Well, human rights, well, I guess that's a whole other debate.
That's a whole other debate. No, the fuck it's not. It's the debate that we're in. It's the debate that you're having. There's not a fucking different debate happening here. What the fuck are you talking about, my guy?
AOE incoming.
Fucking hell. It just feels like people who don't actually know what they're saying, who really like hearing themselves speak.
Human rights are not up for debate.
Point being, propaganda can be done in two ways. You can remove certain things, or you can heavily promote certain things. Why do we see in so many shows and movies nowadays that there's usually a gay character or some form of LGBT representation, right? Okay, that's one thing. That's fine.
Because it's proven to save lives, and we don't see it.
No, I know. I'm
only a decade ago did we start seeing that representation.
Yet you don't have a positive conservative character. There are far.
You know why? So you do have positive conservative characters. What do you think Hank Hill is? What? We do have positive conservative characters in a lot of media. It's just we don't talk about the actual conservative values of the person, just like you're not going to talk about the actual values of the gay person. You're just going to have the gay person in the media.
Far more conservative people than gay people. So I'm just saying, like, it's all propaganda. Both sides can do it. Don't say it's not. So I think neither is worse than the other. I think it's just one side using.
Would you agree that book bans are worse than drag queens reading books?
No, not at all. I think they're. I mean, I think they're
What
a
is
way
a
that
valid-
one side chooses to promote their argument or dissuade.
Man, I remember when I was growing up, when book burnings and also Raging Katsumi, thank you for subscribing at tier 3. Holy shit. So I remember back when book burnings and book bannings were considered that thing Nazis did. I remember that. We made fun of that shit. What happened? Why are we suddenly like, actually, let's talk about the merits of banning books. Let's do that. Let's make sure that we're banning LGBTQ plus material, but like, please make sure that Mein Kampf is available to read. We got to know our history.
What's wrong about Where the Wild Things Are? What's wrong about Charlotte's Web?
I mean, is it the context or the actual? I mean, because you can read between the lines and things that people say.
No. See, Charlotte's Web was banned because animals were speaking, and one parent decided that was witchcraft. Now, none of the parents in the district get to make the child's.
Did a city council have to pass a law that allowed them to allowed them to ban those books? Did some state? Wait, then how did they get banned from the school?
In many instances, school
They
boards
just were
hire a
taken out?
singular professional who accepts singular complaints and ban any books based off a singular
We
complaint.
elect people that we trust to make decisions
We do
on
not
our behalf.
elect the person they paid to go into
I know,
our
but
schools,
we elected
tarp our
people
libraries,
and gave them
remove
the
our
power
books.
to choose an independent person to do that.
And now-
those people were elected.
And
a group
now-
of people, the majority chose those people to then pick somebody else on their behalf. It's the same with electors and elections.
What happened
we
last
don't pick
year?
the electors, but we pick the people who pick.
Okay, so he moved the goalposts. We don't elect Supreme Court justices, but we elect the people that elect them. Okay, but we don't elect Supreme Court justices. Do you agree with the statement? But we don't. I don't fucking care about your but we don't. I'm not gay. I don't give a shit about your butt. I care about the statement I made. I care about whether that statement's true. You should care about whether that statement's true as well.
Pick that.
That
was.
That makes
I'm
sense.
glad. Yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm Will.
Hi, Will.
All right, so you said like Charlotte's Web is getting banned. That's silly. I also think it's silly if one parent runs the whole thing.
Right?
But for sure, that's not every book being banned. Like,
Yeah.
you know, I'm sure you've heard of genderqueer.
Yeah.
Stuff like that should not be in schools. It's pornographic.
I think it should be available at an age-appropriate level. Do I think elementary schoolers need to be reading genderqueer? No.
And in terms of like, you know, Republican bills in Florida, like, you know.
Why did you let it slide that it's pornographic? So, like, A Raisin in the Sun is technically pornographic by most conservative standards. Because A Raisin in the Sun has a rape scene.
2, 1.
Therefore, it's pornographic. The minor character gets raped. I would not say that that's actually pornographic. That is just an event that happens in the book. Sudahoy says, wait, dead ass? Yes. Yes. A Raisin in the Sun is about a girl who is a first-generation immigrant. Her parents came to the United States. They do not speak a lick of English, and she is barely able to communicate her needs in a way that makes sense to her parents and grandparents. Because she learns English as a first language, but she is seen as this exotic thing to the people around her, adults and kids included. And there are adults in her, like there's a fucking line that stuck with me where the point of view character is describing the sour taste of a sexual assailant's lips. And the words he says are, "I love you, Spanish girl." And then the scene effectively cuts to black, and you know what happens. You know what happens there. Like, that's gross as shit. Would I call that pornographic? No. But that is describing the concept of a thing that is considered sexual. Shade's Children is not pornographic. However, there is a scene that describes two characters attempting to make love and struggling through it because one of the characters was forcibly given steroids as a child and therefore had stunted growth of their genitalia. Is that pornographic? Because that's a book I read when I was fucking 12. And I considered it age appropriate then. It's how I learned what a period was. Because there was a line spoken from one of the women in the book, Ninde, that said women already have to bleed once every month. I don't know why I have to go out in the field and bleed more. When describing having to cut a tracker out of her wrist.
AOE incoming.
But that can be considered inappropriate to a conservative parent. Despite the fact that it's entirely appropriate. It's not fucking pornographic. It's just characters in a fictional book that have had a terrible thing happen to them, and that terrible thing happens to be sexual. That's different than porn. That is different than something fetishizing it.
No, I don't think, especially K through 3, that there should be any official curriculum being taught to kids that is telling them about sexual orientation. However, I wouldn't go the extra mile and say, like, we should get rid of every book that just mentions a gay character in the library. That's not a part of the official curriculum.
I love that. We're inching there. What I would say is that there has never been a democracy that lasted when it started banning books. Every single civilization that has ever started banning books turned into a fascist regime. And to me, that's very frightening. And to me, the justifications of it being rooted in marginalized communities and their identities, the majority of banned books discuss queer, trans, black, and brown identities. That feels to me like a very quick trend towards fascism. And so when that's being perpetuated by someone who's saying, I want to be king, there's going to be a third term for president, I'm like, uh-oh, fascist recipe coming together very quickly.
No, I don't agree with the third term bullshit.
Right? What are we talking about? George W. did a lot of work just for him to be like, no.
Sorry, backtrack. What were we just talking about just before you mentioned Trump?
Book bans.
Book bans.
And how they're worse than drag queens reading books.
Okay, well, first of all, they're not being...
He's literally just like, I lost the plot, I'm sorry, what happened?
Banned in the sense that none of these books are banned in the state of Florida. They're being banned in, like, local school boards, like you're saying. So there's no actual government law that's being written to ban books.
What are school boards?
It doesn't... So, school boards are government ran. It doesn't have to be a government law, quote, quote, because what the fuck does a government law mean? All laws are government laws. It's just what kind of government that is. Like, an HOA is a mini fucking government. And its bylaws are just that. They are laws. Are you trying to say federal law? Are you trying to say state law? Are you trying to say county ordinance? There are ways to be specific about this that can communicate the idea that you're trying to get across. There are ways to do this. Also, there's the entire don't say gay law in Florida. Yeah, no, there is actually a don't say gay law on the books.
They're, you know,
forms of government, and they're banning books as a part of a national coordinated strategy that was written in Project 2025 as a part of a fascist plan to overtake. The stated intention is overtake the government.
Okay, but I could say I think it should be more than just one complaint, but I think parents coming forward to school boards and local government levels, because local politics is good. I'm not a fan of
local politics.
I like local politics, so it's different than a statewide ban on books in Florida, which is not happening.
But it's
I agree.
Maybe it is different in the technical sense. It is different in that it is, yes, a different thing, but the end result is for the children in the area that is affected, they are still affected by it. This is the whole geography denotes what is moral or not shit, which I don't agree with. Something is not okay merely because it's in Florida, but it's suddenly not okay once we go to New York, right? That's not how that works. Also, there is an argument that it is a step on the path towards the negative thing that they are arguing about. Like that is also a thing that can happen there.
Local governments are banning books, and that is bad.
Okay, and in terms of the drag queen story hour, what is the upside to that? Why don't we have firefighters or veterans come?
That's a good question. It actually creates safety.
Why don't we have firefighters or veterans? So we actually do have firefighters and veterans that do shit like this. It does happen. But conservatives choose to focus on the drag queen story hour thing. Because they're stupid.
safety and new gender experiences for queer and trans children who don't feel safe. And so we've actually found is queer and trans children who do have drag queen story hours, they actually have higher rates of affirmation, less suicide, depression, anxiety, and I think that matters.
Raging Katsumi, thank you for the follow.
I've been voted out by the majority.
I don't think there's anything else here. Okay, let's do this next one.
Is Xander and LGBTQ plus people have a fundamental misunderstanding of Christianity.
Okay. What is the point of your claim?
Okay, so back when you were talking earlier, a lot of presuppositions.
So I'm just going to say this right now, before he even gets into anything, whenever somebody says you have a fundamental misunderstanding of Christianity, I'm just going to buck up against that and says, so do the Mormons, so do the Jehovah's Witnesses, so do the Catholics, so do the Presbyterians, so do the Methodists, so do the Baptists, so do the. I can just do that. When you say you have a fundamental misunderstanding of Christianity, so does everybody else from a either different faith or a different version of the faith than you. But the only difference is you uniquely think yours is the correct one.
So you made the claim that you were a Christian. I am also a Bible-believing Jesus follower. Contrary to popular belief, the Bible says once...
He doesn't call himself a Christian. He's a Bible-believing Jesus follower. That sounds like you're a groupie, my guy.
You claim to be a Christian, it's free game as far as like judgment. So if I'm a Christian, like people can judge me, I can judge you. Like
they can judge you no matter what. What kind of fucking weird hypothetical world do you live in? Where, oh, well, I accepted the label, therefore I'm being judged. No. This is like somebody who believes in everything, every tenet of socialism saying, but I don't want to call myself a socialist because people are going to judge me. No. They're going to call you a socialist no matter what, whether it's accurate or not. So just own the fucking label that belongs to you. Don't be a goddamn coward.
Like non-believers, pagans, not really, concerned about them. But if you're a Christian, there is certain standards. So we kind of made a lot of...
There are not standards to being a Christian. No. The standards are, and I quote, believe Jesus Christ is the Son of God, accept Jesus Christ into your heart as your Savior. Those are the standards for Christianity. That is what is required to be a Christian. That is what the Bible says is required for being a Christian. Works are dead.
Claims, especially in the totality of our conversation as far as like, okay, medical consensus, we kind of like we're throwing out specific terms. But when it comes to the Christian faith, when it comes to Christian religion, there is depending if you're Orthodox, Catholic, Protestant, there is a centralized authority. There is historical, biblical, traditional teachings, things that have been practiced and understood for thousands of years, right? So when it comes to things like progressive ideologies, specifically what we're seeing in the 21st century, a lot of progressive Christian beliefs are very specific political beliefs. They're not.
Did you know that Christian beliefs were political when Christianity was fucking formed? Did you know that Christus would have been considered a political zealot? Did you know that they were considered political apocalyptic anti-Romans? Did you know that? The statement from this person means fucking nothing.
Faith beliefs, they're political
Who
beliefs.
does Christ tell us has the right to judge Christians?
Other Christians.
No.
Yes.
What? Oh. Judge not, lest ye be judged. Other Christians have the right. No, the fuck they don't. You're an idiot.
Christ actually tells Christians that they should not judge other Christians, and that instead,
he says
God
you will know them by their fruit.
Exactly.
You will know them by their fruit. That is not saying that you can judge them. That is how you identify when somebody is adhering to the tenets of your faith. That is not based on a judgment call.
Exactly. And that if you cast the first stone, and if you use the biblical text or the word of God to tell other people what to do or live their lives, you within yourself are casting sin and sitting within it. And so what we know is that God himself is the judge. And what we are to do is to hold our relationship with God, let others hold their relationships with God, and prevent harm. What I am saying is that LGBTQ plus existences and relationships do not create harm. Murder creates harm. I would say Christians have an obligation to call out and stop murderous policies when they see them.
Okay,
because there is not a correlation of harm that would call out the word of Christ. That is what we're seeing there. I am going to have a very hard conversation about the fact that the original biblical text would have destroyed life for millions of good Christian Americans. So what we did is we listened to the Bible and we listened to the word of Christ, who said, you do not know everything yet. Do not treat the Bible like a law. Follow the Holy Spirit, be inspired by it, and follow it through grace. And because we do so, we learn to bring in new people into the Christian faith, support them, include them.
I have to push back because I think
them.
You're saying a lot of presuppositions, and you're saying a lot of things that, like, back when you were making the claim, right?
That's not a presupposition, that's an inference. That's not a precept. A precept is when you use a incorrect foundation for something. What your friend here is doing is not a presupposition. What your friend here is doing is called inference. They are taking the text from the Bible, and they are making an inference based on what they read. That is not a precept. A precept is the universe happened because of my sock. I can't say that actually happened. I have no way of knowing that, so I have to presuppose the sock. Some would argue that presupposition is what some Christians do with God in general. But I would not go that far. Let's see here. It's a pre-game action. It's a ley line of Christianity, a pre-game action where you get to be a hoity-toity asshole and tell the gays to off themselves so they can see each other in hell.
When everyone was bringing up different studies and things that were happening, you're saying that's fundamentally not true. The things that you're saying right now are fundamentally not true, specifically because of what it's written in Scripture, right? So there's people who, like, I'm not gonna get.
So the fun thing is, not only will you struggle to be able to point to the area of Scripture that says what you are wanting to say, but even if you find that thing, we can find another thing in another Scripture that contradicts it. It's this weird, funny thing that happens when you've got 66 books written by a bunch of different authors who weren't in communication with one another, trying to come and trying to, like, weave that together into one cogent narrative. I'm sorry, but that's, you don't get to go, the Bible says this, and that mean anything. It doesn't. Because we can contradict that with other Scripture. It is the easiest thing in the world to do.
Into the debate of, like, sola scriptura and whether or not, like, Christians only look at the text or tradition, stuff like that. But
the Word of God says we shouldn't do that.
But the point I'm making, so again, the reason why I said fundamental misunderstanding is because when it comes to reading the text and understanding the text, there's no form of, like, exegesis, there's no form of understanding context, there's no form of looking at the text and saying, hey, what is actually happening here?
There is a word in the text from Christ that says, do not treat this like a law, and I haven't told you everything yet.
Say that.
John 16:12 literally says, you do not have all the information now. I have not burdened you with all of the truth now.
They'll throw the Bible verse on there, but so.
And I said it less pretty.
They'll throw the Bible verse on there, will they?
I'll give you one example based off a point I believe you're trying to make. So when the Bible talks about don't judge others when you have a plank in your eye, you're looking at the speck in your brother's eye when you have a plank in your eye. That's not saying that you cannot judge. It's saying that.
Are you sure about that, buddy?
When you do judge, make sure that you are holding yourself to a specific standard, right? We read it in Timothy and James when it talks about holding yourself to a certain standard as an elder and being in the church.
And to offer grace, to offer faith, to offer love. It also says that if you use the text to tell other people how to live their lives, then that is not Christ-like.
You're vehemently misquoting Christ.
So do you believe women should have rights?
Yes.
Then if we were to follow this lane of thinking, women would not have rights.
Who fundamentally pushed for better positions for women?
Good Christians.
Christians, yes, historically, right? So
right, but that doesn't mean anything because the majority of people in America are Christian. Like, that's like saying, actually, men fought for women's rights. Yes, because half the fucking population is men. Statistically, there's gonna be a couple of men there who were not shit for brain bags, right? This line of reasoning doesn't mean anything. You feel like it does because you feel like it bolsters your point, but that's not a good point.
Now good Christians throughout the world are pushing to include LGBTQ+ people in the name of the Holy Spirit.
What does it mean to be a Christian? What is a Christian?
Christian is someone who acts with love and the Word of God.
What is love?
I just know a Christian is somebody who believes in God, who believes in Christ. We don't have an act there. Like, faith without works is dead, or work without faith is dead.
is love.
Yes.
Love is an action word. Love is showing care for other human beings in a sustainable, true way.
Okay, so I would say that is a very watered down understanding of what love is.
What would you say love is?
So love, in my, and I actually been thinking about this, love is the
I'm so glad you were thinking
obligation
about it.
to encourage others to pursue a life that will abundantly reconcile them with God.
That
is a very stupid definition of love. It means that by that definition, you cannot love a pagan. By that definition, you cannot love an atheist. By that definition, you cannot love a Christian of a different denomination without constantly trying to convert them. That's stupid. As an atheist, I can love somebody of another faith. I can love somebody who has a faith that I don't believe in. I can love somebody from a faith that I don't believe is legitimate. I can do those things. I can love that person. I can love that person. I can respect their position. I can let them live their life. So long as they are not doing harm unto others, I can just let them live their life. One of the YouTubers that I consider myself closest with on this platform would be Ocean Keltoy. Ocean is a friend of mine and has been for a very long time. We have stayed the night at each other's houses. We've broken bread multiple times. We have traveled across the country together to go to a conference. Like, we have done all kinds of shit. We've played Magic the Gathering together. This is a person who I can very confidently say I love as a friend. He's pagan. There is no way that I have to contort it to, well, I have to deconvert him. I have to deconvert him from paganism to love him. I have to be making an active effort to try to deconvert him because he's wrong. No, I don't have to do that. I don't have to engage in that. That would be shitty behavior of me to even try to do as a friend. I don't have to do any of that. Because I'm not burdened by that stupid definition of love that doesn't actually translate into love. It translates into trying to force people to believe the way you do.
That's your definition of love. Half of loving relationships in the world wouldn't fit within that. So my definition works way better.
And Christianity...
No, a man and a wife don't fit under the role of holding each other exclusively accountable.
Yes,
it's
they
also
do.
about care.
Yes, they do.
It's about compassion.
No, they don't.
It's about grace.
No, they don't. They do not. Like, okay, so when I make love to my girlfriend, am I trying to get her closer to God? I mean, we can talk about what's happening when the orgasm happens, but that's not the same thing. I'm sorry.
See, again, you're misunderstanding. Marriage is a specific institution that God put in place as an example.
No, the fuck he didn't. Humans made it the fuck up. Marriage is more of a legal thing. It is a legal codification of tradition, more than it is anything else.
Example for our heavenly marriage to Him, to Christ.
No,
that is the purpose. That is the purpose of marriage.
Originally, marriage, as discussed in the original text, was not like a loving marriage that we see today. What we see today is a new version of that because we continue to follow the Holy Spirit into liberation.
Today is perverted. People marry for love. People marry for very superficial things.
And not for property, which I would say is great.
I would say for
yeah, it used to be a property agreement. Women were property passed around. Marriage was not two people of equal status coming together to share a life together. It was one person in a position of power effectively buying another person to be their personal maid and dick sucker.
Power. People in the past marry for power. Marriage is a power play.
And also sometimes literally property. I'm not just like saying
sure,
that.
and historically, right?
And in the Bible.
Yes.
Yeah.
So again, my point is there's a fundamental misunderstanding of the text because you said
I agree.
because you said Christianity means to love. People always say things like, "Oh, the greatest commandment is to love." Again, when I talk about context, the greatest commandment is love in the context of the 10 Commandments. So in that conversation, where they're talking about the 10 Commandments, the 10 Commandments is, first of all, the 10 Commandments is a summary of like more than 600 laws, right? That were in place not just in Old Testament Israel, but also
said he fulfilled those laws and he added new meaning to them because God's word is perfect, but man's understanding of it is not.
No. Man's understanding is not, and that's why Christ came and corrected us. So
exactly.
my point is,
exactly.
the context of the 10 Commandments right, is in the context
Bless
of
you.
there was more than 600 laws. It boiled it down to 10, and then Jesus boiled it down to 2, which people like to quote, love your
5,
neighbor. The first is actually
4,
love the Lord your
3,
God, right? In the
2,
context of the 10
1.
Commandments. It is my
Would it not be not loving God if you chose to violate his
Shockwave.
creation by not loving his creations? And are people in general not they themselves God's creations that
Shockwave.
you are supposed to love? Like, it feels weird. Oh, Jesus Christ. Well, I've been knocked off.
my theological
Shockwave.
opinion that the greatest commandment is when God says, be holy, for I am holy.
I respect that
right?
opinion.
The reason why is because, again, my point is the fundamental misunderstanding of Christianity.
Shockwave.
Your position is that Christianity means that come as you are, stay as you are. That is fundamentally not true.
I didn't say that.
You are saying it because
I think that
When did he say
Shockwave.
that? If somebody comes into Christianity not loving God's creations, then wouldn't that necessarily be a thing that they fundamentally have to change? It feels like you put words in his
Shockwave.
mouth.
Christians like you who use the Bible and the
Christians-
Word of God to hate others need to reflect on that and become more Christ-like.
So you agree with my point when I said that your understanding of love is to affirm. That is not a biblical definition of love.
I'm not telling you need to
If-
change your faith. I'm saying that it is
No,
my
I'm not talking
opinion
about faith.
that you are not
I'm not
Christ-like
talking about
in
faith.
these
I'm
actions
saying
and
that
behaviors.
I'm saying that if a Christian believes that if I have a child and I believe that child is made in the image of God,
Yeah.
and God made them male or God
Yeah.
made them female, and then someone comes
Shockwave.
along and says that they're not male or they're not female, that is contrary. It comes as a divide between what God
that is
intended.
you thinking that you know that
No,
person's relationship
no.
with God better than
Shockwave.
they do.
It's not about-
I
it's
trust
not about
that their
their-
relationship with God showed them who they were,
No.
and it is our duty to love and support
Again,
them as Jesus Christ would.
fundamental
Jesus Christ
misunderstanding.
supported
I'm not
intersex
talking
people.
about
Jesus
their
Christ
relationship
supported
with
sex
God. I'm
workers.
not talking about their relationship with God. So you brought up sex workers, right? The adulterous woman comes. The Pharisees
Yep.
brought the adulterous woman to Jesus, said we caught her in the act, right? Some people say it's like, how did the Pharisees catch her in the act, right? It's like, what were they doing,
Yeah,
right?
exact shady.
Jesus, in his proper context of love, criticized them, says he without sin cast the first
I would
stone.
say you're
correct?
bringing LGBTQ plus people to Jesus and saying they're bad, and he would say,
It's not their bad.
mind your
It's-
business,
no.
and he would affirm the love
So-
with us.
so-
And even beyond that example, I don't think he would tell us to do anything differently because there is nothing harmful
So
being done. I
people-
even think in
so
today's worldview,
this
sex
is-
work would be
this is
respected
why I
by
think
Christ.
and this is why I think it's a fundamental misunderstanding. And this isn't just a progressive LGBT issue. I think there are people in general who have a misunderstanding of what Christianity is about. Christianity isn't good guys and bad guys.
Agreed.
Christianity
It's
is we're all bad guys. We're all bad guys. And
We're all
and
imperfect.
we're all fundamentally sinful. It's not we're imperfect. We are
We all
all
sin.
fundamentally in
I think
sin.
it's unhealthy to think we're all bad people. I think we all sin,
We
and
are,
I think we're
we
all
are
God's
bad.
creation.
We are bad in the context of we are not God. So the way I kind of define
No, that's the way you're framing that is a way that causes people to harm themselves. The way you're framing that is a way that makes people have anxiety about themselves. The way you're framing that is a way that causes people to feel like they never measure up. And instead of what you are hoping happens, which is that those people will instead try to aspire to be more like God because they know they'll never measure up. No. Not everybody believes in the principles of the long fucking defeat like I do. For a lot of people, what that means is they are going to go, well, then why even bother? Why even try? And you could say, well, that's a them problem. But to that, I would respond, no, that's a you problem. When you communicate something stupidly and like a moron, you are responsible for the fact that people respond to that way. So this type of thing is exactly why I see religion as harmful by default. See, I don't see religion as harmful by default. I don't, because not all religion has these tenets. And there's ways to engage with religion that does not include this kind of like self-harm bullshit. There's ways to do it. There's ways to do it that do not cause harm. But this is not it. And my cat is being loud as shit. And I do not know why, because he has been fed and he has been loved. But okay. Zeratic says worm theology is definitely a thing. Worm theology is stupid. Like, back when I was doing the atheist skeptic thing specifically and not moving into politics more broadly, I would be a lot more tactful about that and say it's just harmful. It causes all of these things. We have statistics on this. Now that I am more divorced from that era of my channel, I'm just going to go ahead and say more bluntly, it's stupid. Nakibri says worm theology. The idea that we're all worms. The idea that we are all worthless. We are as good as worms. Which means our only real, like, benefit of existence is making the dirt better for fucking plants. Like, our existence is not something that is valued in worm theology outside of how we compare to God. Said, what about Super Kami Dende? What about Lil Green?
Sin. It's not a matter of you did this, you did that. Sin basically means to miss the mark, right? It means that God is the standard and we will never meet that standard. So to me, sin simply means I am not God and I'm not capable of being God. And because I'm not God, I am not holy, and because of that, the Bible says I'm born into sin, right? So when I say fundamental misunderstanding of Christianity, when it comes to specifically progressives, LGBT groups, is that they think it's like, okay, yeah, we're imperfect, right? But it's more of a Gnostic understanding. It's like, well, we strive each day, and as we gain more knowledge, as we read more studies, we'll somehow attain some kind of like understanding that we'll get closer to God.
So you brought up measure by the fruit. And I would say that when we view LGBTQ plus people,
what are the fruit?
I'm about to describe it in the context of our conversation. If we measure LGBTQ plus people in their fruit and what they produce for this world and how they contribute and how they show up and how they exemplify, it is positive, it is good, and it adds value to our experience.
What does the Bible
when we
say
think
the fruit of
about
the Spirit are?
anti-LGBTQ plus policies,
What is the fruit?
we see harmful. The fruit of the Spirit, I think that's up for interpretation. For me, it's what we bring to the world.
The Bible literally says what the fruit of the Spirit is.
I know, but the Bible also says a variety of things that Jesus Christ tells us to interpret in a more graceful manner. I would say the fruit of the Spirit is how we bring value to this world.
If you love me.
So here's the thing. I prefer the kind of Christian that is willing to look at their Bible and go, so I agree with this core tenet, and the way I am going to live that core tenet out is a way that is beneficial to me and the people around me. That is a type of Christian that I am perfectly okay with. The kind of Christian I'm not okay with is the kind that says, God said the gay's bad, so the gay's bad. That's the kind of person that I am not super thrilled with ever being around in any way, shape, or form.
You will keep my commandments, right? And you will know them by their fruit. The fruit of the Spirit is
and
a
Jesus
myriad
Christ
of things.
Himself.
And there's one fruit of the Spirit. I like to call it the forgotten fruit of the Spirit. It's the last one mentioned. It's self-control.
Forgotten fruit is catchy.
It's self-control, right? It means that in this imperfect world, we're going to have struggles. If in the context of LGBT people, that is their struggle, and the fruit of the Spirit is self-control.
I would say that self-control applies to eating junk food or drinking alcohol.
It applies to all things, but in the context,
but not about limiting who you are as a human being.
Okay, that's time. Thank you.
Was that nice?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I did a lot of reflection before I decided to come today. I think sometimes when it's platforming negative views that are really harmful, it can just be harmful. But I really thought that this conversation could be productive, and I think in many ways it was.
Really, the most important reason why I wanted to come on here is because these discussions are very important, regardless
No,
of
not like this. The discussions are not important like this, my guy. This is just popcorn. This is the junk food of politics, which, I mean, you could say that my channel is as well, and it wouldn't be an incorrect statement. There is a junk foodie nature to what I do versus what somebody who, like, goes out to the Senate does, right? God fucking damn it. Why is this thing always trying to throw the Kamehameha at me? Stop it. I don't want the Kamehameha to hit my... Stop it! Why? It keeps aiming it at me. Is it because I'm the healer? I get it. I'm the group's bitch, but I don't need to be the boss's bitch, too. Stupid frickin' said theatrical bullshit. Yeah, it is the, oh boy. Oh boy. Well. Can I heal myself? Can I do that? Okay, I can heal myself. I can do that. There we go. Better, better, better. I lived, bitch. I lived, bitch. Woo! Ooh, vibroblades are in Warcraft now. That's neat. World Shrinker. Oh, that's just the trinket. Anyway, so man, what is my takeaway from all of this? I guess my best takeaway from all of this is it's Jubilee. Jubilee is junk food. This is the longest I've ever been able to sit in a Jubilee, and I thank the developers of World of Warcraft for giving me that superpower, because I could not have without the aid of an MMO letting me just kind of sit here and listen to everything. Holy shit. Said MF is practically an entire Halloween bag of candy.
The topic may be, finding a middle ground, meeting with people that you don't agree with is something that we don't do.
I'm glad that this is a space where we can all come together and share our opinions without fear of violence, because unfortunately that's something we see a lot of nowadays.
Dude, not for your conservative views. That does not happen all that often. Not statistically. Like, the most you might have to deal with is a very effeminate man kicking a phone out of your hand. Like, that shit has happened, but...
I didn't feel surrounded by the enemy, and I think that that's so important. These people didn't hate me. I didn't hate them. We want the same things.
Are you sure? That lady with the black hair kind of seemed like she would have preferred you burning in hell.
We're using different information, and that's why it feels like we're in different realities, and so we just have to close the gap. I'm a community organizer, and my job is to find commonalities that people have and shared goals that we have and successful ways to work towards them so that we can build a better quality of life for ourselves and a better future for the incoming generations. And I think that every single person here today wants that. And I think that there's a broken idea.
So that's as far as I can get in there. I can't do more of that video. Let me know what you think in the comment section below, though. My take was given very, very much throughout all of this. I cannot stand Jubilee, but if you want me to cover more of this shit, this channel just shouldn't exist. Insert any video chat tagline here. Hey, thanks for making it to the end of the video. I really could not do any of this without all of you. Those of you watching, and especially those of you who support me on Patreon. I wanted to go ahead and take a minute to thank all of you who do that, because with YouTube being what it is these days, I really cannot do this full time without the support from each and every one of you. Those people would be Red Joker, Purple Poundini, Jemshin, Britzkrieg, Jupe the Malignant, Michael, Ravalern, Mabbity Babbity, Astral Frontier, Tales of Atonement, Nixie Chan, Kiri Artemis, Victorian Alchemist, I'm not saying the last part of that, and you know that. Leela Ururaka, Arcton Arclacier, Kiratorian, Dren Hadamata, Jordan M, John L, Lord Bleck, Smiling Game Master, and Fire Shard. Thank you so very much. But since you're here, why not go ahead and try watching another one? There should be one that's on the screen right now. And if you are a patron of mine, I wanted to go ahead and thank you again for all of your support. There is still a video you could press, though, if you'd like. I would appreciate it just a little bit.